dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a dope, but we with all that. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Made $1 million and I can't go back. Got a lot of jewelry on me, man, you can't hold that. So ask him better, tell him that I ain't so crack. Know your money long when your people can't afford that. I'm ballin', yeah. My mama told me that did my calling. I keep that stick, I don't do no brawling. Open out the doors and let them all in here. Yeah, they all in here. Big dog, they come back and I'm big dog. Heavy petty, come break my wrist off.
Good morning and welcome to the RugbyPass Fan Zone Six Nations Prediction Show. My name is Jeff Neville and today I am joined by Geraint Davies. Later on, Jim Hamilton will be coming on to answer your questions, and after that, Haldy Pottinger and John Okafor will be coming through to discuss all the rest of the games as well. But first off, it's myself and Geraint Davies, and we'll be looking at the games coming up this weekend. Geraint, it's been a while. I missed you, man. How are you getting on?
Yeah, doing right, Jeff. Yeah, we've been a little while. We haven't spoken really since that Ireland match. I mean, it's been tense in the Welsh Irish affairs since that game. But no, all doing good. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to a big weekend now, hopefully. And I suppose we kick off looking at Italy versus Wales first off, and you know, your own team being involved, so it's one you probably have a keen eye on. So how would you see it going?
Oh, you'd be hopeful of a Welsh win. I think most people would probably be leaning on those ways. It'll be interesting, some of the matchups. You got Josh Adams on the wing against Ioane. Ioane has been going really well for Ireland. I think Josh Adams is. I thought he was outstanding against England, but particularly his cultured use of the boot and then some nice little kicks through, and obviously scored a cracking try as well with some good reaction from the Welsh players. We won't dive into that one too much. So yeah, I think those kind of matchups pretty cool. Obviously, Gabisi has been going pretty well for Italy at 10. Not a huge amount of quality possession really. I think they've had the least amount of entries into 22 after Wales. So Wales with the least entries. Ireland Italy only just behind, but then they converted the fewest. So they're getting into areas not on a great number of occasions, and then they're not scoring points when they get there, which is a key part of their game. They spend a lot of time around the middle 50, so yeah, it'll be an interesting one. But yeah, hoping for a four try bonus point from Wales. What's your thoughts, Jeff?
Keeping that Grand Slam on track. I think in regards Italy, what it'd be nice to see is probably putting finishing touches to what they are creating. I think anybody who's watched them over the last few weeks would have noticed that they are creating things and that they are creating half chances, but they're just not finishing or they're not polishing them off. So it would be great to see them finish off that. And it would also be great to see, and I think we can all agree on this one, just the defence kind of stand up for the full 80 rather than, you know, maybe the first half or something like that. And even against Ireland, watching it, you know, people were saying, oh, you know, it's not too bad and they've done well in the first half. But I mean, the 3 previous games before that away in Italy failed to score at home against Ireland. So you know, you'd be hopeful to see that Italy can turn that around a little bit. And like you mentioned, Garbisi, just give him some front football rather than having to deal with the dregs that's come on off the back of rucks and stuff like that they're getting at the moment. Because he's an absolute baller. He's capable of changing the game. He's capable of creating something. And it is still quite a young team, and especially the backline, such a young backline. I think Canada has twice as many caps as the rest of them all put together. And he's the only one who's enjoyed a victory over a Tier 1 nation. So, you know, it'd be good. Like, I know you're going for Wales and I'm not saying I'm going for Italy here, but it would be nice to see them kind of put that competition up against them. But I suppose from a Welsh point of view, what are you hoping to see? Are you looking to see maybe this is a chance to create something new or a chance to try something different? Or are you happy just to keep trusting the process?
Yeah, I think it's all about just trying to maintain that momentum, to be honest, Jeff. And it's in these kind of games, it'd almost be disrespectful to the opposition to just kind of go into it when they chuck the ball around and kind of do away with your current game plan. So I'd expect there to be a little bit more freedom in the Welsh play, just because of the nature of the fixture, and indeed the go forwards that Italy rather have been affording so far. Their defence, it's allowed lots of yards in contact in particular. They conceded the most yards in contact of any team so far. They just can't do that. The Welsh attack, I would hope that they just continue to build their play, kind of keep keep those kind of guys, Liam Williams and Rhys Ahmed, get those guys into space, which is what's been happening already, and just be patient with the build-up. You can't really use those guys in space unless you create that kind of opportunity. So we need a good go forwards. We got loads of comments through the comment section. Most of them referring to the England-France games, obviously a massive one later on. So we'll come on to that in a moment. But a couple of comments for a Welsh Grand Slam. Wales are the jammiest Grand Slam of all time. I believe, Dan, that still counts as a Grand Slam. I don't think the jammy bit takes away on the record.
That's it. There's no highlight reel on a Grand Slam.
They can put asterisks on it. I don't mind an asterisk. I'll take an asterisk in every Grand Slam, to be honest. So, I mean, Wales have obviously benefited from various events so far, but you can only play what's in front of you, and that's I think that's the nature of it, really. And when you score, obviously, 40 points against England, you take all those 40 points, wherever they come, and I'm sure no team will be any different. And no doubt we'll have some cracking games later on. George has commented, why isn't Sheedy starting for Wales? That's a solid question. My feeling was that if Hardy would have been fit, I think we might well have seen, or if he'd been starting, I think we might well have seen Sheedy at 10. I think they complement each other quite nice. Sheedy's been called off the bench. I mean, would I like to see him start? I'd love to obviously have a bit more of a crack, to be honest. But at the same time, he's developing quite nicely, and he's come into a new camp. There's time on his side, so having someone like Dan Bigger who's got a bit more of a bit of experience head on him, although he doesn't always show it. He's been outstanding so far. I mean, can't forget the penalty goals he kicked against England and the conversions he kicked against England from the touchline. Those were huge moments. Wales wouldn't have been ahead if it wasn't for those goal kicks. So you can take where the tries were tries or not. The conversions themselves were really outstanding. And this Josh Adams one right in the corner, and he's nailed the kick after all the commotion. And that's a really calm head, which you got a lot of respect for that. Okay, a couple of the comments. Wales are playing England regardless of luck. Yeah, Max, I'm on your side there. I thought actually England played some outstanding rugby. I'll come on to that a bit more detail in a moment, but I thought England played some outstanding periods of rugby against Wales, but really short periods. You've got to remember that there's lots of comments about Daly being made, and he fumbled the ball on a couple of occasions, which obviously took away momentum from the England attack. But Wales created lots of opportunities and took them, which is important. Should we jump into that with Jeff? Do you fancy a little bit of England-France?
Yeah, we should probably move ahead to England-France, just looking at the time. But it's probably a lot of people's pick, of the weekend, Le Crunch, as they like to call it. But also just to see, it's France coming off the back of missing their game versus Scotland, England coming off the back of the loss. England's attack, I think, it's transitioning into a new style, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But overall, looking at England versus France, if you had to just straight away, no discussion about it, if you had to pick a team to win, who are you picking?
I'll go France this afternoon.
Yeah, it's hard to see past them, isn't it, a lot of the time? They've come an awful long way under this coaching staff. Yeah,
very much so. But at the same time, I was actually chatting through this with a previous, an ex-England international yesterday, and my thoughts to him were, if there's anybody that's going to beat France right now, it would be typically England, because England do have the capability to do that. I mean, their pack, when they're firing, I think they've really got the potential. There's a lot been said about Billy Vunipola and whether Sam Simmons should be given a shot. Sam Simmons should be given a shot, 100%. But the guys that are in there anyway, there's some quality boys in there, and they're able to get front football. They're able to kind of control possession. So they're definitely in there. I wouldn't in any way write England off. I think they got definitely the opportunity.
I think there's two things you touched on there. The first being Sam Simmons being given a shot. I think a lot of people are on that same thought process, but you do have to look at how you're going to balance your pack around him. So while he is playing well, don't get me wrong, you do have to look at, is he playing better than guys in that position, and can he contribute more to the English team and English style of play than the guys in there at the moment? And we often in Ireland, there's always conversations about young guys coming through, and that's exactly the same one I always refer back to. It's just whose place is he going to take, and is he going to perform that role better than the player in there at the moment? So that's always a big one. But the second thing I'd like to look at is, as you said there, if anyone can beat France, it's probably England, because they have it in them. But a lot of people saying that England are in trouble at the moment, and even there last week on the radio and on Spud of Dove, I was chatting away to the guys there, and they said England's in trouble. I said, well, when you look at Eddie Jones, in 2 years' time, World Cup 2023, if he reaches a World Cup final and wins a World Cup final, I don't think he will pay any heed to what happened in the Six Nations in 2021. And if someone asks him, if someone asks him, and says, oh, but what about 2021 when you were struggling? He'd say, well, we're world champions now, aren't we? And even he faced a bit of a dip before, and he still got to the World Cup final as well. He's a very, very, very shrewd coach. He knows exactly what he's doing. And people who think, that, England are trouble, get rid of Jones. Jones knows what he's doing. They're transitioning at the moment. They're seeing a new style of attack. That doesn't come without problems. Like transitioning's never faultless. And I think, like you said, you never know if everything clicks today for England in attack. There you go. It might be unbelievable. And I know Wales did outshine England there a couple of weeks ago, despite a few refereeing decisions. That doesn't count. But you have to take the referee out of the equation. And overall, 15 versus 15, who was better? Yeah, it was Wales. But that doesn't mean that England can't turn it on against France. That's not how sport works. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how England go against France. I think if England can slow the ball down and play their game, it'll be something. And even just a comment there, completely agree with Jeff. Appreciate that. Not many people do. So thank you very much.
It's a rarity, that, Jeff.
Yeah, but at the same time, if France open up, I think we could be in for a really interesting game. And I think we probably are best just to move ahead now quickly to Scotland versus Ireland for the last couple of minutes. And it's one I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Despite what a lot of people think, I think it's a team that can go out and get the job done. At the end of the day, when it comes to professional rugby and it comes to Six Nations, especially, the money involved and how important the wins are, I think Farrell has picked a team to do that. But he also has one eye on the England game coming up as well. I think starting Jamison Gibson Park and giving Murray time off the bench, I think he does have that one eye on the England game coming up. And a lot of people want to see Craig Casey playing, like I'm one of them as well. So much time for him. But at the same time, Farrell is in camp an awful lot more than I am. So he knows exactly what he's doing, a bit like Jones too. He knows what he's seeing and he knows what needs to be done. So looking towards that Scotland-Ireland game, probably from a Scottish perspective, Grant, what are you looking forward to seeing from them?
I'm really excited about that game. I mean, I've talked all the way through about Scotland. The fact that I really enjoy in the way that they've been progressing. I think their style of attack and indeed the balance of their defence has been really cool. We're seeing Finn Russell against Sexton, and I think that's a pretty cool and mouth-watering opportunity to see two contrasting styles. They are pretty opposite in the way that they play the game. I know we've got in a moment we're going to have a look at a little clip of the two players reviewing each other. I think the way that Finn Russell plays the game, the way that he can take the ball to the line and then do things that are just unpredictable, I think he's actually balanced that really well. It's clear that his balance with the way that Gregor Townsend wants the game to be played, I think they complemented each other really nicely. Some of the control he needed to bring to the game, kind of away from those really kind of creative moments, I think he's been a lot better in that case. Be interesting to see how the packs go. Obviously, the Ireland line out and the Ireland driving maul has been pretty impressive so far. I think it's been a real tool for them, but they've not necessarily converted then from it. So they've got to take those chances. I'd be interested whether Ireland maybe just take a slightly more direct approach.
It's interesting you mentioned the lineup because Scotland versus England, I think England only had 4 or 5 lineouts, and I think 4 of them came off their own penalties. So Scotland just didn't kick to touch, which means they've negated that set piece straight away. So if they do the same, I mean, against Ireland, that's a massive set piece for Ireland gone. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle that set piece as well. So we do have a look at the clip here, or we are going to have a look at the clip here of Sexton talking about Russell and vice versa. So it's coming up now, I think, in a second.
He's obviously a threat to the line. He's got a good short kicking game. He can pull the strings if we let him, and he's hurt us in the past before. We haven't played against him the last couple of times we've played Scotland. So again, we've kind of had to go back and look at some old footage. But he's been in good form for his club, and he's a massive threat like they have across their team. But obviously, when you got him and Hogg, they're probably the standout guys. But we have to be on our game this week to stop them.
No, me and my old mate Sexton will have a bit of chat in the pitch, see how he's getting on.
You're a good buddy.
No. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to bend down and tie his laces. He's getting that old now, so.
So there's just a quick tip. I think it's more tongue in cheek than anything, you know. And I think even if Sexton saw it, he'd just say, "Oh well, we'll see on Sunday," kind of a thing. I think they're the kind of animals they are. But you were talking about Finn Russell's ability to make late decisions, and it's interesting you say that too, because I was chatting to Mike Prendergast, who's the attack coach for Racing, and he said the exact same thing. It's Russell's ability to make decisions very, very late, and then for those decisions, maybe not all the time, but certainly most of the time, to come off. That sets him aside from other players, and also the fact that if you rewind back and look at some European games, he'll try something the first 20 minutes, it won't work. He'll laugh, he'll smile. He'll try the exact same thing 79 minutes with the game on the line. It will come off, and it's not out and over it came. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Russ can do, and how, you know, the Irish team in defence, he's capable of moments of magic, you know. And if one of those moments of magic happen, you just kind of have to say, look, it happened, and we'll go again. You know, sometimes you just have to regroup and go. So looking at Scotland, Ireland, last word to you, Geraint. If you had to pick the team who's going to win that, Scotland at home playing really well, Ireland have a very experienced team that can get the job done away from home, who would you select?
I'm always torn on this one, because the two teams I enjoy watching. But for me, I think Scotland are going to take it. That's where my money is on right now.
It's okay. I'm going for Italy anyway.
Which team wins? I'm happy for the team to win. I don't mind if it's a draw. I want to see obviously a cracking game. I just feel the way the Scotland are coming on, I think the way that Hogg's been controlling the backfield, I think the way that the guys in the pack, I think the way that Gray's been controlling some of the player on midfield, I'm tending along those lines. But yeah, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Ireland pulled out the bag either.
Yeah, I do think Ireland's set piece is probably going to set them aside, and I think they do have the experienced team selected that can probably get the job done. And not only that, I actually, looking at the team as well, I think we're going to see a massive game from Robbie Henshaw, and especially Gary Ringrose too, at 12 and 13. And they're probably in the form of their lives, I think, at the moment. Both of them playing off each other. So I suppose, with respect, I'm going to go the opposite to you, and I'm going to say it's going to be an Ireland win.
You'd have to.
But it's going to be narrow. I'm going to say that much. It is going to be narrow before Haldy jumps in or anything like that. So, folks, that's going to be it from me and Geraint today. Coming up next week, Q&A with Jim Hamilton, and Haldy's going to be leading that too. And afterwards, then Haldy and John Okafor are going to be talking about the rest of the games too. But that's it from me and Geraint. You can see me on the Loose Head at Twitter and on Instagram, and you can catch Geraint then at Davies GDD for all coaching and analysis. But that's it from us today. Thanks a million, folks. Stay tuned.
I'm Jim Hamilton, rugby player and now rugby fan. When I mentioned I wanted to travel the world to see if other cultures love rugby as much as we do in Britain, I didn't think anyone would take me seriously. Luckily for me, someone did.
This is what makes us fight.
It's got a hole in it already. Is that from a shark?
No, our sharks are vegetarians here, man.
Time to get to the chopper! They were the good days, Haldy.
We're on, Jim. How are you, my friend? How are you?
I'm very good. Loving your work. I did enjoy watching myself back on TV, not because it was me, just because it feels like a long time since we've been able to travel. But, mate, love your work on here, actually. It's the evolution of RugbyPass. Loving your energy. And it's great to chat to a fellow Scotsman on here.
It's got to be done. We have to look after each other, don't we? We have to. Somebody needs to.
Exactly, mate. How are you getting on anyway? Are you enjoying this RugbyPass Fan Zone live? I mean, this is the first one we've done before the games, right? They're generally a review of the matches.
Yeah, exactly. It's been fantastic, Jim. We've had so many different camps, and one big thing I've taken away from me, like when Scotland lost against Wales, like you professionals, you pundits, and you guys that are in the studio, you're good, because I was broken after that match, absolutely broken, but you had to kind of build yourself back up to then put on a smile, something like that, to answer questions and be quite partial and things like that. Because after that Wales game, Jim, I was just it was like Australia almost 2015.
I know.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was.
it was. You know, it's a very Scottish thing, Howdy, isn't it? I mean, you think about the England game and the energy and the atmosphere around that. Even though there was no fans in the stadium, in Scotland and around the world, you could feel the energy from Scottish people and how much that result meant. And you're thinking, right, here we go. This is it. This is it. The Six Nations ours. And then Wales, and we saw what happened with the red card, and then the delayed, the postponement of the game against France. It's a very Scottish thing, isn't it? The wind's been taken out of our sails, and yeah, it's a shame for the Scotland boys after that unbelievable win down at Twickenham.
It is, and we're just going to have to pick ourselves up tomorrow, and we'll obviously get on tomorrow's game. But today we've got two cracker of a matches. Obviously, first of all, we've got a couple of comments coming in there already, Jim, just asking what's our predictions going to be for today's games. Wales, Italy, what are you thinking?
My gut feeling is it's going to be tougher than we think.
I know.
You know, and I've been tough on Wales recently, and I shouldn't have been, because they've proven me wrong again. Like, they're unbelievable. Yeah. You know, when it really matters, Wales turn up. But I was on a chat with Tom Shank last night, and he was going through some of the stats that I found quite interesting in terms of meters made and opportunities and line breaks. And I don't think they're bottom of the pile, but they're not at the very top. And they've had a little bit of luck along the way. But when it really matters, Wales have fronted up Six Nations, as we saw in the World Cup when they made the semi-final. They could have beat South Africa, but they have had a bit of luck, haven't they? And I made a ridiculous statement before the Six Nations that this game could be the wooden spoon. What do I know?
I think I said the same sort of thing, because, and I'll stand by it. If those red cards hadn't happened in the Irish game, would Wales have won? And similarly, if the red card wasn't given in the Scottish game, would Wales have won? We can't take anything away from the England game, because even without those two incredibly controversial tries, you know, Wales might have still kind of got the win at the end. Italy seemed to be leaking points like a faulty dishwasher or something like that. 40 points. And it's a shame, because we all, again, it might be the Scottish thing, Jim, with the underdog and things like that, but we want a good Italy. Everybody wants a good Italy. We want to have a really competitive Six Nations. Is it going to be a success for Franco just to keep the score below 40?
Or under 50? Look, it's a tough one, because, again, I'm putting myself out there when I say I actually think Italy playing better than they've ever played. Yeah. And the way that they're playing, you look at the profile of their team, you know, the team that Franco's put together, young players, like talented players. You know, there's a few very obvious things in that Italian team. You know, their exits and the structure they really struggle with. And we know that international rugby, you know, the kicking game is so big, but able to get out of your own 22 is massive. But they've not had the bounce of the lever. They've not had the look of the green. You know, there was a few decisions against England where, you know, Italy played really well. They scored first, didn't they? And then you look at some of the decisions back and forth that went against them, and, you know, that's unfortunate for Italy, because they're not, you know, one of the better teams, and the referees maybe see them in a different light. But in answer to your question, today's game, I think it will be stuffy for Wales. I really do. You know, because Italy want to target a game, and it will be a Scotland game, naturally, which has been more comfortable for Scotland. But they would have seen this Wales game in the way that Wales played in the Autumn Nations Cup and the pressure they've been under. But Wales are on for a Grand Slam, so the ball's in their court.
I know, and I agree with that. Italy were unfair. We had a big discussion with Jeff. We didn't really agree with each other, but I counted 3 tries for Ireland that came off quite dodgy decisions, and that's what Scotland's got front up tomorrow. That one when a penalty was given for an Italian player holding on, and CJ Stander was using his head on the ground to balance as he was rocking over. So we're hoping for less than 40 points, and we're hoping Italy can put on a bit of a show. Now, a great comment coming in here from Jojo OB. Thanks for tuning in, Joe. Do you think it might be a Sean Edwards masterclass from France today? His team's always front up to England. Obviously, we're talking about that crunch at Twickenham.
Yeah, well, arguably it is the game, you know, of the Six Nations this weekend. It's a difficult one to call, isn't it? Because England haven't been playing that well. Like they just haven't. They had the big one against Italy, but, you know, we're talking about the second best team in the world here against France, who a lot of people are tipping for favourites for the World Cup in a couple of years. So it's a difficult one, because France haven't had the preparation. We know what happened after that Ireland victory, that half the squad or more got COVID. The game against Scotland was cancelled. And there's a whole protocol that the French team need to go through in terms of getting their heart scanned, their lungs scanned. and trying to get out there training and try and get healthy, then fit to play a test match. But England, it hasn't come together for whatever reason. Eddie Jones has made a couple of big decisions in terms of selection, but you're talking about a France team that nearly beat England in the Autumn Nations Cup final with a second/third string team.
Exactly. Yeah.
This France team, Howdy, for me, the talent pool that they've got to choose from is frightening, right? They're the team in the next couple of years that we need to look out for. And answer your question, Sean Edward, he knows how to bring the team up to a big test match in terms of the emotion around that. The big thing will be about France is, have they had the training in the locker to be able to beat a very structured, tactical and desperate England team? You think about the desperation around these players. They know that this game for England is the biggest game of the Six Nations because of what's gone before. So it's going to be brilliant. These games, England-France, the crunch matches are always brilliant.
Exactly. And at the same time, England can turn up today, lose by 20 points. At the very same time, they could turn up today and win by 20 points. Son Block, thanks very much for listening and watching. But man, do you think the French have improved their general discipline so the heads don't go down? I think so. I know Galtier, you'll know more than me, Jim. Galtier is a bit of a taskmaster, and he sets his standards and he demands those standards. French discipline, it has improved, definitely, since he's come in.
Oh, definitely. And not just discipline in terms of penalties. We've seen there's been a couple of red cards, like Varmahina, when Galtier obviously was kind of in the French squad during the World Cup. Hawass punched Richie last year when Scotland beat France in the Six Nations. The discipline in this French team is more about the glaringly obvious penalties. It's about their discipline off the ball when they're working back, when there's a line break. And so discipline is across a number of different kind of facets of the game. This French team, you watch their work off the ball with their physicality and the structure in which Sean Edwards got the game in defence. That's where the game-changing parts of to their performances are. We know what they can do. The offloading and the ability to do things that no other team, arguably in World Rugby, can do. Throw in Dupont and Undmak and these star-quality players, Fiku in the centre. But their discipline is around their ability to work off the ball. And these things that, arguably, the casual rugby fan might not pick up. And that's where France can be really scary forward.
Yeah, and obviously France have got Big Vakatawa back, and they've got a little fella known as Ntamak on the bench to come on as well. T, you're listening in. Do you think England are fatigued with England's style of managing and training? A lot has been said about Eddie Jones and not picking this players and still picking the players that aren't playing. Obviously, you're at Saracens yourself, Jim. You'll know the boys there. What's the feeling? Is everybody still behind Eddie Jones in the England camp?
Yeah, so I don't know. They are a bit of a kind of closed unit. And that's maybe one of the things why people aren't liking England as much at the minute, because there isn't that accessibility. The way that they've conducted themselves in the media hasn't warmed the hearts of many rugby fans. Not that they need to, that's not part of it, but arguably it is to grow the game. But from the outside looking in and knowing Owen Farrell and Billy and Marrow and the kind of backbone of that England team, they're under, they're under pressure, like they are, and you look at the relationship with the referees. Owen's come out this week and said that, Eddie's come out and said that Owen has been chatting to a referee about how he conducts himself. And you're hearing these things and you start to worry a little bit about, you've got your England captain, the best team in the world, and they're trying to understand how to deal with a referee. And then you think of the exterior pressure as well, which is rightfully so, with guys like Sam Simmons, like Marcus Smith and Don Brandt, and I know Max Malin's in the team, and the call to get formed players into this England team. Lawrence Dallaglio said it's harder to get dropped from this England team than it is to get picked, which shouldn't be the way. When you've got a pool of players, but I understand COVID and the bubble situation where you can't bring players in and bring players out, but I think that people have lost a little bit of romance with this England team because of the way that they play, quite a boring style of play, but also the way that they've dealt with the media.
Well, that's an interesting point. And we've seen Marrow start Six Nations. He was being tipped as not potentially just a Lions squad member or a Lions test starter, but as a Lions captain. He's leading the wrong stats at the moment for penalties given away. Lions count. I would have had a wee stamp on Marrow to begin with at the beginning of this Six Nations, but now I'm not too sure. Lions captaincy, who's Warren Gatland thinking about? Is Alwyn Jones, is he going to still make the the team? And if so, is he going to be the captain? Do we look at somebody outfield like Stuart Hogg? Sexton, is he a test starter? Because you're wanting a test starter to be your tour captain, surely.
Let me give the lay of the land, Howdy, how I started this Six Nations. Maro Itoje, Lions captain.
Yeah.
Alan Wynne-Jones, not in the squad. They're two statements that I made. I mean, I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. Maro, for me, it's a shoe-in to start, right? Shoe-in to start. I was calling for Maro to be Lions captain because it's more than just the player on the pitch, I think. I think that the way that, and again, talk about the media, and because that is what it is. You know, an Amazon documentary being made in the South Africa camp, in the Lions camp. Sia Khaleesi front in South Africa, Maro Itoje front in the Lions. They're both under the agency of Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's agency. You know, they're transcending the game of rugby, and I think it's a positive. But it comes down to the performances on the pitch. And for me, if I am to put my mortgage on it now, I would say that Alan Wynne-Jones is the front runner to be captain. Now, whether or not that means he will play all three or all four tests, or how many tests it ends up being, because there is someone else putting their hand up. You can't go with Owen Farrell. You can't go with Owen Farrell for captain. But for me, Alan Wynne-Jones, because his performances are still up there in the top 2 or 3, 4 second rows in the British in Britain and Ireland, and knows him, he could say to Alan Wynne-Jones, mate, you're going to be tour captain, right? Yeah. And if you're in form and Wales win a Grand Slam, you're starting the first test. You're starting the first test with Maro or with James Ryan. We'll put Maro at 6 because there's no one else, Howdy. Like, you can't have Hoggy at 15, as good as he is. Captain in the team doesn't work. And again, I chatted to mates about it before. You need a captain that's in amongst it. And we saw, you know, obviously Martin Johnson's a glaringly obvious one, but Sam Warburton. You know, you're in the lineouts, you're in the scrums, you're in every single breakdown, you're close to the referee, you can feel the energy, but then everything that goes with it as well, managing the media, players respect you. Even if Alan Wynne-Jones now is at 60, 70, 80%, no one's going to question him as captain. No one's going to say, oh my God, I can't believe they picked him. So I think it's really interesting. This is a big, you know, this is a big week, as we know, but if Wales beat Italy and they're on for a Grand Slam against France, and even if they don't beat France, but they play well, I'm telling you now, I reckon Alan Jones will be captain.
And obviously Sam Simmons been started number 8 for the pack.
Could you imagine? Imagine Eddie Jones, that's it. He's not picked for he's not even entertained conversations. He's like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pick Sam Simmons. He'll start number 8 for me.
You would just imagine Gats just do that just to piss off Eddie Jones. Like, myself and John Okafor, we're going to talk more about the England-France game afterwards, Jim. We got a few minutes left. Big match for us tomorrow, Scotland, Ireland. 3 o'clock kickoff, Murrayfield. Ireland have named a real big bullying pack. Scotland, it's great to see Jamie Ritchie back. It's great to see some of the guys back. William Nell, he's getting his first start for 18 months or so. I saw the teams. I got a wee bit worried about the size of the England pack, but also I got a wee bit worried that, and I'm not going to be one of those arseholes, but Roman Poit, he's refereeing tomorrow, and Reynal, he's an assistant ref. You need a strong referee tomorrow because Ireland are so amazing at these dark arts. They're amazing about getting in the rucks and pushing that limit right to the max. Where do you see it being won or lost tomorrow?
Well, especially you mentioned the referee. That's it's a poignant point, especially, with where the French referees are. They're not at the standard of the other referees, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's a fact. You look at the decisions. I'm not saying that with emotion. I'm saying that with facts, and we're backing that up with some of the decisions made. So they need to be able to manage him. And where the management comes with a referee is perception. So you've mentioned the physicality that Ireland have got with the pack. That's where Scotland have struggled before with Ireland, with England, with South Africa, with New Zealand, with the Fijis and Samoas and Tongas in recent years. I feel like we're kind of past that. But Ireland is still a team that we've struggled against. You think about the World Cup, that first game, I think it was, 28-0 or something like that. It was ridiculous. The Autumn Nations Cup as well. Like, we weren't even in it. Duhan van der Merwe scores a kind of try. Because Ireland hold on to the ball so well, and they're so physical and direct in their carries. For Scotland, it's about, one, being patient when that's happening, being disciplined around the breakdown. Can Jamie, can Hamish get in over ball and steal ball when the time's right? But then the other thing, Howdy, is about taking the opportunities. Even though we played really well against England, right, and even though we did play well against Wales, we're not a team that takes opportunities when they come. And Gregor Townsend has said it himself. He's like, the opportunities that come against Ireland, and there won't be many, We need to have the ability to take it. So we know we can play this brilliant style of rugby now. Scotland seems to be everyone's second team now. Finn Russell pulling the strings, Duhan van der Merwe, you've got Hoggy at fullback, Sean Maitland, you've got Darcy Graham to come on, the back row, Hamish Watson carrying Jamie Ritchie, George Turner carrying the ball, Johnny Gray. These names are now rolling off the tongue, but it comes down to winning games, and winning games ugly. And I think to beat Ireland, Scotland have got to find a way to win ugly. But hand on heart, I know the lads back before, I kind of agree with them. I think Scotland can do it tomorrow. And then, you look at the championship, it makes the championship really interesting off that. And I'll tell you what, I'll finish on this. How good has the Six Nations been, even with no fans? Like, how compared to take Italy out of it, it's just a shame that France game was cancelled for Scotland. Not that we would have won that, but it's kind of it's delayed the kind of outcome of the tournament at the end of the month.
And it's a bit of a testament to Scotland. News that's coming out that they weren't advocating for 28-0. They want to play the game. The boys want to take on the French, and it'll be a crack of a match. It could all come down, results going this weekend, it could all come down to that Friday night at the end of March if something happens. So we'll just wrap it up just now, Jim. Predictions all round. Let's start with the Wales-Italy match.
Stuffy game, I think, for Wales. I think I don't know what it's like over there, but I imagine it's going to be pretty decent. I think I think this will be the game that Italy target, but I think Wales will win. It could be 12, 13 points. They've got the quality firepower to do it. So I'm going to go Wales by 12 or 13. I don't want to predict the score. I'm shocking at that.
No, I think you're pretty safe with that. Maybe a wee tenner on an Italy win might be a wee little thing. And then the big match for today, England-Ireland. England are favourites. Sorry, England-France. England are favourites for the match, believe it or not. With all the bookies, England are favourites. Who are you going for?
It's tough. I just think if England don't win, there's some real problems. And I don't think they're at that stage where they're going to reveal a load of problems. This is the game that they need to win. Against Wales, Jamie George said it. I think they played as well as they played against New Zealand in the World Cup, like he said. But that man, Owen Farrell, is a world-class player. Maro told you, he'll understand the penalty count around there. I think England will win. I think it will be tight, but I think that, they could win by 6 or 7, maybe 8.
So I'm going to go for a France one myself, Jim. They're just on a roll just now. How many times is the commentator going to say champagne rugby today? Especially when we got this guy, Dupont, running the show and Intermat to come off the bench as well. It's going to be... And then our match tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Scotland against Ireland. Let's pretend that Poit has a game of his life and Radar backs him up fully. What's going to be the score?
So my head and heart both say Scotland, and that's a calculated kind of evaluation of the way that the teams have played. The only issue for Scotland will be is the fact that they've not played for a few weeks now. Do you know what I mean? Like Ireland had the run out against Italy, a tough place to go and play anyway. The fact that they hadn't won 2 games, but I just think Scotland now, not just the firepower in the starting 15, but I think we've actually got a decent bench to be able to come on and put a performance in. We're not going to smash Ireland. We don't really, you're not going to smash a team, when they're as good as Ireland. But I think we're going to see a performance from Scotland that I think will be slightly resembling the performance against England. And I think Scotland will win 6 or 7 points.
Yeah, I agree with you. If there's 70 minutes and there's just one score in it, then I think we've got the noose around us to kind of see the game out. But we'll see. We're all going to lose a couple of years, I think, this weekend anyway, just watching what's going to be happening. But Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, my man. I watched it a lot during the Scotland game, cheered you on from the Murrayfield stands. It's an absolute pleasure speaking to you, my man.
No, it's great to be on here. I'm headed down to London to a studio for ITV, which I'm happy about because I've got the 4 kids in the house, and I'm at the house for the weekend. So, keep it up, Howdy. Loving your work, buddy.
Cool. Right, so tune in, stay in, tuned, everybody, because it's going to be myself and my heterosexual life partner, John Okafor, and we're going to go through everything to do with England and France. But until then, from me and my man, Jim, we'll see you soon.
A number of guys would often talk to me about the reality of being a professional rugby player and the risks associated with it, and it really concerned me.
I think for me it was something that you sort of just got on with. You didn't really tell anyone about it.
There's a real culture in rugby of rubbing some dirt on it and just keep on going.
But I think with concussion, when it goes wrong, it can go really wrong. when you do decide to play the sport, you do have to accept there is an element of risk.
In the heat of a game, your best player goes down. Are you going to make the right decision?
I think people are aware this isn't something you can ignore anymore.
You know, it's like I always say, don't give concussion a second chance, because it will wipe you out.
Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to RugbyPass YouTube channel. You're joining me, Haldy, Pierre, Pottinger, and I'm here with my brother, John Okafor. How are you doing, John?
We're good. It's been a long time since I see my heterosexual life partner.
I know. I sent your Valentine's card. Did you get it?
Say again?
I sent your Valentine's card. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. Have you seen the flowers and champagne?
Nice, good. Right, we're here, guys. Please fire in with all your questions, comments. We want to hear from all of you. We're going to be talking about the crunch. We're talking about England playing France. Two massive powerhouses in world rugby. Two teams. I think it's France have the most registered players in the world. I think England might be coming second. England obviously fronted by Eddie Jones. France by the wee general. That's Fabien Galtier. It's France have had their troubles with COVID going through the team, they're going through the camp, and then no games, injuries, players coming back. England, we all know about England's woes. Their two first games, they're just not firing on any cylinders. Let's have a roundabout view at the moment, John. What are you thinking heading into this match this afternoon?
The crunch. I think you and Jim have smashed it. We said about with when England do play France, we do get like those mad open games somehow. As an England fan, I'm nervous. I can't lie. This is one of the best French teams we've seen in a while. You look at the Autumn Nations Cup, we struggled to beat them. They took us to extra time and nearly to penalty kicks with a third / second team string team. So it's gonna be tough for us. But like you and Jim said earlier, like England just have that knack of just getting it done somehow when our backs against the wall. And you know, like for me, when you said the bookies have got England as favourites, I think most rugby fans don't have England as favourites in this game. I think a lot of English fans are nervous that we could be on the wrong end of a bad performance.
Well, let's see. I'm going to try and speak. I mean, it's going to be a really open match. I'm going to try and see it from a Francais point of view. Obviously, the French supporters will be delighted to see Beg Vakatawa back there at centre. Him and Gail Fickou, that is a physical centre partnership, but it is also a very skillful centre partnership. I think we've got this offloading game that Vakatawa brings, and Fickou just these runs, these lines of running that he brings are just phenomenal. They're coming up against an England centre partnership that is tried and tested, but it's just not firing. How do you see it happening in that centre battle today?
I think look, the French will be excited to have their players back. I think for me, it's the French centres are probably the more physical of the two. They will look to get front football, get their wingers in play. However, like you said, our centre partnership is tried and tested. It has worked for Eddie Jones. It's provided big results for Eddie Jones. So it's going to be a contrast of two styles in midfield. We've got a more physical and athletic centre partnership with the French team, but we've got more pragmatic, tried and tested partnership with the English team. So for me, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a big matchup. It's a big matchup in the centre partnership, and I'm really looking forward to see how it goes.
I know, and we've had a few comments coming there just now, so thanks, guys. Keep firing up your comments. We'll do our best to get through them. Reese Williams, I wonder where Reese Williams is from. His comments, how many penalties are we expecting today from England? Now, me and Jim kind of hinted on it slightly. Marl's heading up that unwanted chart of penalties given away, and a couple of managers or coaches have commented that England have been lucky not to get more yellow cards than they have done. England's discipline, we have to say, it has been a problem this season, this Six Nations.
Absolutely. Like, I'm a big fan of Maro, but he's leading the wrong stat at the moment. I'm a big fan of him. I love his work, love his game. However, like in terms of that penalty count for England, we have to address it. It is a big problem. But Eddie Jones did come out and said that players like Maro do get refed a bit harshly because they play to the edge. But that's part of the skill of playing rugby, especially at test level. How can you play the referee? How do you manage those things? Because if you keep playing at the edge all the time and the referee's not letting you play, you get pinged. And we look at the previous games, look at those penalty counts, look at the penalty count against Wales, look at the penalty count against Scotland. We have a problem. So we need to adjust it, and we need to. I hate the phrase, but we've got to play to the referee today.
But it's very true, because I looked at some fantastic videos since the games. There's one where the ball was actually out, and Maro told you he was pinged for being offside, but when you actually slowed it down, the ball was actually out. But as you say, you can't play like that. You can't play to what you're doing in training and things like that. You need to be trained to the ref. And we've got Andrew Brace today from Ireland. I think he refed one of the first matches of the Six Nations this season, and we both, I think, we agreed that it was a great match. It was a Scotland-England match, wasn't it? He refed it well. I thought he refed it well. So hopefully he's going to let the game continue and let the game flourish, because when the game's open, that's when we'll have a fantastic watch. Other places that the games could be lost, and we've got Malins in there at fullback. Maybe Daly using up a bit of the credit that he's had. So Daly finds himself on the bench. What's Malins going to bring that Daly doesn't?
I think now is look. If you look past Daly's games, he's not been England's best performer. I think, like we said, we have players using their credit in the bank, and I think he's probably the first victim who's run out of credit in the bank per se. So hence why he's been demoted to the bench. Malins, bit of a slighter build fullback, however, very, very exciting, fast, athletic. I think we could potentially see a bit more of running rugby from the back three in broken field. With England, we do like our kicking games. We do like to play to the territory. However, Malins does like to have a crack at broken field. We'll get his head up. We'll see what's in front of him. So we could have a bit more of a running rugby style of game. And yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Speaking of the lineups, we've got Luke Cowan-Dickie, who's in the starting lineup. James George has been moved to the bench. For me, I think Luke Cowan-Dickie probably pips Jamie George in terms of current form. I think obviously he has the benefit of playing week in, week out in the Prem heading into England, unlike Jamie George. However, I think it's probably a like-for-like change there. I think they probably play a similar style of rugby. I think one's just slightly a bit more battle-hardened, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are players. Again, I think I agree with you a wee bit there, John. I would have liked to have seen maybe Cowan-Dickie come on as a impact player. I don't know how much big of impact Jamie George. But then if the game's going to be close, then you do want a Jamie George coming in the last 20 minutes, shoring up everything. Whether we talk about the second roles, and we've got Charlie Ewels coming in for Johnny Hill. So that's a wee bit unfair on Johnny Hill. I think he's been playing very well. And we don't know what extra Charlie Ewels is going to be bringing to the team. But when you look at the bench, it could almost come, it's a 23-man game. When it goes down to the bench and you look at different benches, you're going to see the England bench, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Then you go look at the French bench, you're going to go, shit, look at that. We've got a comment there from T. Thanks very much for watching, T, and joining in. England's woes have a lot to do with Sarries not playing, and the spirit of England is in poor form. Well, we saw what happened when Saracens played their maiden game in the championship. Fair play, a lot of the England players weren't actually in the squad, but that's got to have some effect on the England team.
Yeah, of course. I think that it's a valid point. I think we've talked about this a lot, about the Sarries core not playing. They're in poor form, and because they make up the spine of the England team, it's going to have a knock-on effect. Like I said, we talked about it a lot. Eddie Jones, we know Eddie Jones. He's probably one of the most stubborn coaches in world rugby, maybe just in sport in general, in terms of he doesn't like big wholesale, vast sweeping changes. He'll just make subtle changes. He's got his core. He's happy with his core, and like good players don't become bad overnight. Let's make this clear. Like these size players that we keep going on about, like Owen Farrell, Marrow, Daly, George, they're still top players. You just have to take into account they've had COVID, they haven't played as much, plus the champ hasn't started when they would have liked it to start. So it's a bit of an inevitability. They're gonna be a bit slow to the races. However, I do think they will come good again.
Absolutely, because they're tried, as we said, they're tried and tested team. You don't just turn bad overnight, you know. I got another great comment there from LouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in, LouTube. I think the England-France game will be closer than people think. I wonder how France will play post-COVID. I think it will be very interesting to see how it goes. Because, yeah, that's a good point. It's not as if France have been using the extra time to go through new moves or new line-out calls or new training or work on fitness. They've been self-isolating, and in some respects not self-isolating as a group. They've been self-isolating in their rooms playing the Xbox for 10 days or whatever like that. Will we see the France team tire? Then will we see the England bench being brought on and Daly perhaps coming off the bench? Or are these sort of players coming off and doing something?
I think that again, COVID is always a big talking point. France have been really unlucky with that COVID outbreak. So it's how they've been able to adapt, manage it. Like you said, like everyone says, they've been able to rest and recharge. That's not the case here. They've had to self-isolate. They've been stuck in their hotel rooms for the best part of 10 days. They've been getting tested. They've been getting tested every day for the past 8-9 days to work out how far it is into the squad. So they haven't actually had time to prepare on the pitch, because you do need these reps. When it comes to test match rugby, you need reps in the bank. It's all good and well looking at screens and Zoom calls. You need to be out there on the pitch, getting your timings right, getting the chemistry together, working out how like the angle you need to run off this player and that player. Is all the subtleties that you miss when you're not being able to train. So I do think that comment is a very, very valid comment. I think post-COVID for the French team, it's gonna be tough for them. I think they may have a slow start, but we know with the French rugby, champagne rugby, like you said, how many times? Is that let's go. How many times that going to be said today on commentary? Is going to be interesting. I think another big talking point is that back row again, and the notable omission of a certain fella that plays 8 in the southwest of England.
He's going to be a Lion starter. But the other thing is the French players that haven't been self-isolating, they've all been going back to the clubs. So they've been going all over the country and playing for their teams. That's why really he's not playing today, and Thomas gets his shout. It's going to be interesting. Predictions. We're going to kind of wrap it up there, Jones. Next, it's getting on. We need to get ourselves beard up and lunched up and ready for the match. Predictions. Where do you see it going? It's tough. It's tough.
Like my heart will always say England. Always, regardless of how bad of a rut we ever get in, my heart will always say England. However, my analytical brain, my more logical side of me is saying, the French could do a number on us. We may be humbled. You got the likes of Dupois, Teddy Thomas on the wing, so Entermac coming off the bench. So like that French team is ballistic. It will sting us if we're not careful. My heart will say England will squeak by. Will squeak by maybe 5 or 6 points. But my head's saying that England could lose by 12 plus points. So I can't call it. I honestly couldn't call it. They're saying that we got T saying it could be a draw. So I honestly couldn't call it right now because there's so many variables. It's unprecedented times, but I'm going to say England. I have to say England. I'm going to have to say England.
I'm going to go, because of the backlash that's happened after those very poor refereeing decisions, especially the ones going against England. Andrew Brace will be told, get it right today, mate. Get it right. So he will be on the ball. I don't think he's going to let anything go, anything. And everything will be double checked by TMO. And that might not work for England. And I can see England's heads going down because they're getting a bit peeved off. We're getting pinged the whole time. And I can see France taking advantage of that. And I can maybe see a 10, 12 point win. But it is too close. At the very same time, you can see England putting a cricket score against them, or France doing a cricket. It's amazing. That Six Nations is so amazing because we've got games like these that it's just like you just have to watch. It's going to be nuts. So, Joe, I think it's going to round it up to now. We're going to speak very quickly. We're going to fire on to a wee wager. We're talking about the French-based players being released from the camps and going back. One of those players was Finn Russell, who had to go back and play for Racing. I think they lost to Toulon. That's not going to be a big, easy game. That's going to be a real tough game. Before we go on to that, quick prediction for tomorrow, John, Scotland, Ireland.
I think again, you and Jim touched on some good points. I think Scotland, if they're going to want to beat Ireland, they got to win ugly. They're going to have to win ugly. They're not going to have the sort of free flowing, sort of expansive rugby they're going to have to play, because Ireland are a compact team. They're a very, very well drilled team. You look at their line-out stats. You know, they're one of the best defensive line-out teams and attacking line-out teams in the Six Nations. But prediction for there, I think, you know, they got the game breakers. Scotland have the game breakers, the sort of X factor players. Those guys, you do love your X factor players over there. But I do think Scotland just have the game breakers, the X factor players, just to, you know, when the game does get tight, especially when you're looking at that 55, 60-minute mark, when there's like maybe 3-4 points in it. Those are the sort of players that I reckon Scotland can rely upon and come alive and get them over the line. So I'm going to go Scotland tomorrow. It won't be a massive like drubbing or anything like that, but it'll be probably a pragmatic, professional approach. Really looking forward to seeing Finn Russell back in action. He's probably one of my favorites.
And
He's
Ireland
probably one of my favorite players at the moment.
Yeah, and Ireland actually haven't played against Finn Russell for like 2 games either. So it's going to be amazing. Yeah. But this break that will happen, this break in the Six Nations, it did allow Finn Russell to fire back to Racing 92 and catch up with his best friend, Simon Zebo. Scotland against Ireland, and RugbyPass caught up with him midweek because they've got a wee wager on the go.
If you lose, you have to get a picture with Johnny for your Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Like, I'm around him.
Right, and then we win. What happens then?
Oh, I didn't really think that.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was like,
in case it does.
Zebo, you might have to go on a night out with Finn.
No. It needs to be something like a picture under the Eiffel Tower with a kilt on.
Fair enough. No problem. No problem. Naked. Whatever you want. Just the kilt.
Well, there you are then.
Right, are we happy with that?
Finn, you need to take a kilt back then. Give him a kilt, and he has to get a picture underneath the Eiffel Tower. Just
do
in
you
a
actually think you're going to win?
Of course we do.
Even Finn doesn't believe he's going to win.
There you go. You heard it there first, folks. When Scotland get that win, Simon Zebo needs to don his Scottish-ish kilt and go stand underneath the Eiffel Tower.
Where's he going to have to put that on Instagram? Is that going to be on Instagram?
I don't know. It'll be somewhere. It'll be everywhere. I can see it happening. I'm agreeing with you, Joe. I think the game's going to be. It's going to be a tough game, and what happens today with our 2 matches will have an effect on what happens tomorrow, and then the final days of the Six Nations. Let's quickly, just before we end, John, we haven't even touched on it. The Italy-Wales match. Quick predictions for that one.
Look, no disrespect to Italy. I but there's a but there. There's always a but coming there. But I do believe that Wales will win. Is the nature of how they win is probably more important for the sides like Wales. You could have a professional approach, 50-pointer. You put them away nice and early. Don't let Italians get their tails up. Or you could have a bit more of a tight, squeaky game where you don't do your work early enough. In the 60th minute, you're like, hold on a minute, like we should have put them away in the 20th minute, or this test should have been over long gone. So for me, it's just the nature of how Wales win. We all know Wales will win, and I think it'd be a massive shock if Wales do lose. But it's now the nature of how they win. Do they do a professional approach, take care of the business, and don't let the Italians get their tails up? Or do they, is it a bit sloppy? Do they try and play a little bit too expansive? I think you and Jim touched on it earlier. There's always a trap of falling into where you want to sling the ball out wide. You want to get loose, Rees-Zammit going, George North going too early. You want to get them playing way too early. You got to, everyone says it, but you got to earn the right to go wide, And that's the case. You do have to earn it, and you do have to get that front football to get your back three going. So it's going to be Wales 25-pointer. They're probably on course for a Grand Slam, all things considered. If we're going to be honest, they're probably going to get a Grand Slam. Probably for me, it's going to be a pretty poor Grand Slam. But like I said to Granite the other day, in the history books, 2021 will have Wales winning the Six Nations, and they'll have a Grand Slam. There's going to be no asterisks. It's not going to say COVID years, no. England was poor or Saris were relegated. It will just say 2021 Wales Grand Slam, and I think they're odds-on favorite to probably do it. And today is probably another step in that right direction for them.
We'll see. I agree with everything you're saying there, and I think Franco Smith, if it gets under 20 points difference, I think Italy may even take that as a decent shout. But again, Wales are one of the teams that Italy have beaten in the Six Nations. So again, you just don't know what this competition is going to bring up. But again, I think that's going to bring us to the end, guys. Any other final thoughts for the whole weekend, John?
It's good to have rugby back. The Six Nations is back. We'll be back with the fan zone. That's about it. I'll probably be drinking every time they say champagne rugby in the England game.
So you will join us after the match, and we will kind of be like a little bit champagne. Drink responsibly, people. Drink responsibly.
But all jokes aside, it's really, really good to have Six Nations back. Been a long 2 weeks. I've missed having you on co-commentary beforehand, so I'm really, really looking forward to the games this weekend.
That's going to be cool. Right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. All of you have tuned in. It's been an extended show this morning, a preview rather than a review. Or is that the other way around? We've been looking at all the games beforehand, and I hope you've enjoyed the crack. Keep following, give Rugby Pass YouTube channel a subscribe, please. You had Jeff and Grant there this morning doing their thing. Jim Hamilton, big Jim, coming in speaking about his sort of stuff, and then myself and John Okafor. We've been a delight to have you here, folks. So other than that, get yourselves all lubed up and ready for the matches today. It's going to be an absolute cracker, and we can't wait to be speaking about it afterwards. So for myself, John, cheers for now.